Of all our five senses, I don't think any of them are as intrinsically linked to emotion and memory quite as much as our hearing is. I'm your host, Leah.
Can you hear me now? I'm Phil.
And I'm Steve. Today we'll be delving into the world of mysterious and strange sounds.
If you have an appetite for the strange and bizarre, then pull up a chair and grab a spoon for another intriguing serving of Remnant Stew. Remnant Stew is gluten-free, organic, made from all natural, free-range ingredients, and guaranteed to provide the recommended daily serving of curiosity.
Have you ever heard a song and immediately been transported back to a specific time in your life?
Ah, yes.
I know that whenever I hear anything from the group Alabama, it takes me back to when I was a kid and my sister and I would play on our mom's records and dance in the living room. And that Alabama record was destroyed when one of us, and I really can't remember which, danced right onto the record we had carelessly tossed on the floor when we changed it. My mother was not amused.
No, I wouldn't be either.
You are an Alabama album.
It's said that patients in advanced stages of dementia will sometimes respond to music when they don't respond to anything else.
Yep.
I saw this video, is amazing, of an elderly Alzheimer patient who used to be a ballerina, a prima ballerina. I'm not sure what the difference is, but she was a prima ballerina with a New York company. And she's in a wheelchair and she's just moving her arms super gracefully to the music of Swan Lake. And without the music, her movements are really shaky and jerky and clumsy. She's lost most of her memories, but the music brings something back. She remembers all the choreography.
It's muscle training right there.
It's a beautiful video.
Right.
Well, sounds have effects on us that I think we often overlook. Did you know that infrared sound tones below the range of actual human hearing can still greatly affect us?
Yeah, we talked about that on one of our episodes about the ghosts, where there
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I was going to bring that up. I'm telling you, these episodes are new to me every time I listen to them. According to an article at NBCnews.com, infrasound can produce a range of bizarre effects in people, including anxiety, extreme sorrow, and chills, supporting popular suggestions of a link between infrared. I keep wanting to say infrared sound.
Infrasound.
But infrasound, really low sounds and strange sensations. Right. And like you said, there's been studies trying to link the infrasounds to cases involving paranormal activity.
Exactly.
Suggesting that instead of being haunted by something paranormal, we're just
reacting to the
sound.
Can't do anything about.
Right.
Well, let's talk about some unsettling and mysterious sounds by diving right off into the deep and talking about underwater sounds. As you know, the Earth is more water than land, and only about 5% of our oceans have been thoroughly explored and charted. So it stands to reason that a lot of mysterious noises come up from the deep waters of the ocean. And I find this very unsettling.
You don't know what we live above? What?
Yeah, no one knows for sure what's down there. But before we delve into some of the mysterious sounds...
Atlantis, here we come.
Exactly. I mean, or just huge monsters or whatever.
Yeah.
But
or a Boy Scout trip to the beach. You never know.
Let me tell you about this acoustical phenomenon of the ocean called the SOFAR channel.
So far.
Because
we're on our way.
Sound travels so far. It stands for SOFAR, stands for Sound Fixing and Ranging Channel.
Okay.
So the deeper you dive down in the sea, the higher the water pressure, right?
Right.
That means the water gets denser and denser, and sound travels better through dense material than it does through thinner or less dense material. So sound should travel better and better the deeper you go, but there's more to it. Because water also gets colder as you descend, and sound travels better through warm water than it does cold. Right. So that means there's a sweet spot. It's the SOFAR channel, a depth at which sound waves travel best through the ocean. There's a seasonal variance, but the channel is approximately 1,000 meters deep or 3,300 feet below the surface. And let me clarify, it's not just that area sound travels best. It's an area in which sound waves can travel over the entire ocean. According to and quoting from an article for flypaper.soundfly.com.
No, that sounds like an outstanding website.
It really was. It was really cool. It's a scientific website. Quote, the aptly named Heard, Heard, Island experiment in 1991 tested this principle and pushed it to the limit, letting off an underwater noise near a remote Australian island, which was picked up by hydrophones, underwater microphones, 1,000 meters below the surface on both coasts of the United States.
Wow. Now, that's
Wait, what?
that's a long way to travel.
That's
About
right. So
10,000 miles or so.
in that channel, it's especially low frequencies. It's
Right.
really
Yeah.
the low frequencies that work. It travels until it hits land, period.
Man, that's something else.
So it's no surprise that marine life, specifically whales, make great use of the SOFAR channel to communicate with each other.
Right.
But also our militaries and presumably other countries'
else,
militaries
Yeah.
do as well. I don't remember it from the movie, but according to Wikipedia, the novel The Hunt for Red October
yeah.
really described the use of the SOFAR channel in submarine detection.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, let's talk about the bloop. Mental Floss describes it best when they call it, quote, the big kahuna in unexplained sounds. Ever since the Cold War, there's been a network of underwater microphones throughout the world's oceans. Originally, they were there to scan for enemy submarines, but since that time, they've also been used for scientific purposes.
Right.
And they receive a lot of strange sounds that they really don't know what it is. Big sea monster, who knows? One of the most famous and powerful underwater sound events, known as the bloop, very scientific name, right?
Yeah.
Was recorded by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the NOAA,
Right.
in 1997. The bloop event lasted for about 1 minute and rose in frequency from a low rumble. It was one of the loudest underwater sounds ever recorded. Hydrophones more than 3,000 miles apart all captured the same noise.
Okay, this is where I want to say, and teenagers are thinking, underwater farts.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I was going with underwater stomach rumbling up, but yeah, something like
It's
that.
a whale!
Yeah. Researchers at the NOAA, which first recorded the bloop, were at a loss to figure out exactly what made the sound. Maybe it was a fart. A man-made sound was immediately ruled out, but if the sound came from an animal, the animal would have to be much larger than any known marine species.
Wow.
That led to several fanciful theories of massive deep-sea monsters. I think
Well, they can pass gas. I mean, it's possible.
and
Yeah, it could be.
Cthulhu was one of them. The bloop is generally accepted today by scientists to be caused by a massive ice quake, or the calving. That's like a calf,
Yeah.
like calving, like a cow would calve of
Giving
an
birth to.
iceberg. Yes, where a large chunk falls off. However, the idea of the sound coming from something organic, like an undiscovered sea creature, hasn't
That's
been
not been
totally
dismissed.
ruled out. That's
Right.
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 So before
So
we
how
listen to it,
how often is this bloop happening, or is
it's
it?
it was a one-time
One-time event.
It's just was so bizarre that there's been nothing like it since.
A one-time bloop.
One-time
That was
bloop.
a big bloop.
And
We've had the Big Bang and then the big bloop.
That was that was a rock hitting the ocean right above it.
Yeah, something like
and I'm going to play it here. Before we listen to it, let me tell you, I got my information from Wikipedia and Mental Floss. It does sound like a large fart.
I'm telling you. Here we go.
Oh, boy. Well, now let's talk about some obsolete sounds now. We're constantly surrounded by sounds that form the backdrop of our lives. I can remember growing up just outside of the small town of Kerrville in the Texas Hill Country. It seems that we were in an area that was greatly populated by a wide variety of birds. The sound of birdsong was an ever-present companion to my childhood memories, and one of my favorite was the distinct song of the whippoorwill. Its call mimics its name, and it also announces the arrival of spring. I love that sound, the whippoorwill sound. And I'm happy to report that when I travel back to my old hometown, that the birds are still there, even though the town has kind of grown out to surround the property that my family has there. But as times change, some of the sounds that we become accustomed to in our surroundings tend to come and go. Mm-hmm. They are ever present for a while, but then as circumstances or technology changes, the once familiar sounds begin to fade away. Today, we're going to explore some of those increasingly obsolete sounds. We'll begin by playing some sound effects from some various free-to-use YouTube channels. I graduated from college in 1980, way back in the day. My degree was a bachelor's art in teaching, and my specialization was in social studies. The final year of my study was what was and still is known as teacher methods. Now, one class that I found to be especially helpful, that I'm sure they don't teach anymore, at least not the same methods that I had then, was called AV Tech.
Audiovisual.
Here we go.
In this class, we learned how to operate several pieces of equipment, including this device.
Oh, wow.
No, that's not a machine gun. It is a 16-millimeter projector. It was always an exciting day for the kids to come into my classroom and see the big projector on the cart perched in the back of the room. Every Thursday, we would receive deliveries from the local education service center, occasionally containing films that I had actually ordered. Often I'd order one thing and something else got sent. Or sometimes it came in these metal canisters, and it would have the name that I ordered on the outside, but when you open it up, the film was something else, you know.
Oh, it was like Blockbuster when you went to go rent a VHS and you got something else in your
something else in the case. Yeah, it happened to. It started off with the Education Service Center in metal 16-millimeter film canisters. Anyway, I became quite skilled at threading the film through the various sprockets in the slots. I was also adept at mending a break in the film in a dark classroom full of junior high students. That's quite a skill. You know, that was one of the best things that I ever learned. Occasionally, if there were a few extra minutes in class, you could hit the reverse switch and show the movie backwards, which enhanced the educational benefit of the video with some impromptu entertainment. Oh, there's nothing funnier than seeing Washington crossing the Delaware in reverse. Another time...
row.
He's going backwards. The kid will say, hey, look, he's going backwards. It's funny. Another now archaic device that I learned how to operate was the Duquesne film strip projector. And now, when I was in school back in the 50s and 60s, or actually the 60s, I was born in the 50s, educational film strips had little captions at the bottom that the teacher would read. But by the time I was teaching, they had advanced to the point of using a cassette tape to narrate the slides.
I remember this very fondly, and I wasn't I was born in 71, so
Right.
I wasn't going to school until you know.
Yeah, I was teaching in the 80s when you were in school. So, you know. So you'd have a little cassette player, and you'd put the cassette in there, and you'd start the film if you got it started on the right slide, and you'd hear a helpful ding.
That's
of a
right.
bell.
That's right. And every kid wanted to be the kid that got to sit there and
Operate
and
it.
operate it.
Yeah. And move it to the next slide. Well, a couple of years into my career, our school obtained the advanced Duquesne, which had a cassette player built right into the projector. And rather than hearing a ding, if you flipped the cassette tape over to the other side, it had a little signal that it would send right to the projector, which would advance the slide for you. That was really uptown.
That was awesome.
And it also demonstrates our point that the familiar ding had become obsolete. Yeah. Now, earlier I mentioned my old hometown of Kerrville. Well, recently I was there browsing through an antique store, and I spotted this lovely device.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Lift it up right here to the microphone.
That's very familiar.
This is a rotary dial wall phone. And by the way, when you I always liked showing my students this, the term hang up the phone was because you actually used to hang up the receiver onto the little cradle thing.
Like, it was really nice to be able to hang up on somebody.
Yeah, you could slam it down, especially with authority. Yeah, right.
Wham! And they couldn't hear that, just so you know.
But it felt so good. And having a cell phone, it just
takes
doesn't.
it away.
Now,
No.
I mean, the flip phones kind of did. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can kind of flip it then.
Until you flipped it wrong and it snaps.
yeah, you break your phone. But
Now, not only did I like having this rotary dial phone in my classroom, but I especially like this one from my old hometown because it has a sticker on it that has the name, the phone number for the local police, fire, ambulance, and Pizza Hut. So, you know,
Very important one at the
Very-
end there.
yes.
that was
Pizza
before
Hut.
our town had the 911 system. And
Yeah, because you call the Pizza Hut, all of them are there.
that's pretty much. Everybody's over there. Send somebody out to the house. I had it hanging in my classroom until I retired last year, and my students were always curious and somewhat flummoxed by it. Though a few stated that their great-grandparents still had one in their home, so there's still a few of them around. They were astounded.
Because if they take them off, it'd be the clean spot.
Yeah, you see the wall is lighter in that
Right.
place. Yeah. They were astounded that you actually had to know the number of the person you were calling. Yes, rotary dials were clumsy and could be frustrating if you were trying to dial in a hurry.
But we all know everyone had cheat sheets next to the phone.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Oh, yeah, including the little sticker there.
Stickers, yeah.
Now, along with the sound of the rotary dial came some other unique sounds. Yes, that's the sound of an actual telephone with a bell inside of it. I'm not sure if this one had I think it originally had a bell inside it, but I don't hear anything dinging in it anymore. But there actually used to be a real bell inside of the telephone. Okay, I remember there was a comedian, you're probably familiar with a comedian named George Carlin.
I love George Carlin.
And back in the 70s, he commented that it was a good thing that the phone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell instead of Alexander Graham Siren, or else we'd be summoned to phone calls by an ear-piercing people would say, grab it before it peaks, and then you'd have to wait for it to wind down. You know. Another one, you had to wait until you heard this sound. That's the dial tone. You couldn't start dialing until you got the dial tone.
Oh, for sure.
But then sometimes you would hear this sound. That told you that the person you were calling was already on the line. If the household had teenage daughters, this was the sound you most often heard when you tried to call them. Now, back by the late 1980s, something called call waiting was developed, which gives you a little signal to let you know that someone was trying to call you. But up until then, you had no idea if somebody was trying to call you. Now, speaking of phone lines, this one's not as old as the rotary dial, so you might be familiar with it. Ooh, that hurts my ears.
It did then, too.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, that's all the good
There you
ones.
go. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, home internet access came through your landline. The dial-up modem made this bizarre sound while connecting. The connections were slow, but hey, at least you were out there on the information superhighway, as the internet was called in its early days.
The information rural back road.
It is now.
Well, continuing with oceanic sounds, scientists have been listening to one particular whale for decades. Called the 52 Hertz whale or 52 blue, this poor creature is also known as the loneliest whale on the planet, as its call at 52 hertz is much higher than the call of any other whale. The species of the whale is speculated to either be a blue whale or a fin whale.
Okay, so this is just one whale, not a species.
No, just one whale.
An outcast whale, poor guy.
That's whaling.
It is whaling. It's calling for its, a mating call or whatever.
I'm over here. Come on, we'll set up house.
But they're getting the busy signal.
But, well, no, here's the thing. The species is ultimately unknown since it's only been heard and never seen, but scientists believe its unusual voice is due to a genetic malformation from it possibly being a hybrid species or having an unfortunate defect. Either way, no other whale is likely to even be able to hear its lonely call.
Or this was some teenagers at the time randomly playing this so that it would mess with their other
in
science.
the ocean?
In the ocean, messing with their own science friends.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, here's some conspiracy theories.
Like,
Science nerds. Hey,
we're
we're
just
going
to keep this going because they still haven't figured
That's
it
right.
out.
Since 2010. According to Mental Floss, there's been recent attempts, this is funny, to raise $400,000 on Kickstarter to seek the mammal out. And quoting Mental Floss, okay, quote, "It should be noted that the fundraiser reached its goal through the help of Leonardo DiCaprio, another mysterious beast." And I got my I got my info from Mental Floss of Wikipedia. And I also need to say that there has been one other whale recently heard at that same thing. So maybe
we could just get the
maybe
two
they'll
of them
find
together.
them come together. And I have the sound of 52 blue.
I understand why I call it blue, because it sounds like he's singing the blues.
Yeah.
The poor thing's lonely.
He's saying
lonely
phone
wind.
home. No.
Come on. I need something.
Then there's the ping. Quoting from Wikipedia, quote, Fury and Hecla Strait in Canada is the site of an unexplained phenomenon called the ping, also described as a hum or beep.
Okay, is it a ping or a hum or a beep?
Yeah.
Let's
Heard
get this
throughout
straight.
the summer of 2016. It was heard by various residents of the town of Igloolik, and local hunters blamed it for a comparative scarcity of marine game, of animals that year. So basically, it scared off all the fish.
First of all, let's just enjoy the name Igloolik.
Igloolik, I know, right? Igloolik? Igloolik. I don't know.
It looks like Igloolik to me.
It does.
And we apologize for any mispronunciation of any names and people we actually say in this episode.
That's
but
right.
You get what you get.
There are so many other unexplained sounds coming from the ocean, such as the Julia, the upsweep, the whistle, and others. These are sounds you'll have to Google because we don't have time to explore them all, but scientists think most of these are either volcanic in nature or created by the movement, crashing, or calving of icebergs. Now let's move from the terrifying depths of the ocean to the unsettling sounds on land. Some interesting sounds we've talked about before in Remnant Stew is the Aztec death whistle. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Gosh,
that was
awesome.
creepy.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where I was reading it, thinking, how scary could it be? And then it was just creepy. And then the nursery rhyme that was played sporadically in the English town of Ipswich.
Right.
If you want to hear the Aztec death whistle for yourself, go back to our season 1, episode 7, called Spooky. And then the nursery rhyme, The Old Man is Snoring, and how it haunted Ipswich in the oddity du jour of our season 1, episode 8, Four-Legged Soldiers. But this leads into my next story of a similar situation in which a town has a mysterious and very annoying sound. Unlike Ipswich, where spider activity was setting off an alarm, there is no known source for the sound haunting the residents of Forest Grove, Oregon. Forest Grove is a town near Portland known to be a quaint little college town because it contains Pacific University. In January and February of 2016, a high-pitched squealing sound rocked the quiet existence of the residents. Happening several times in both the daytime and the nighttime, a noise described by various people as a mechanical scream, a giant flute played off pitch. I wouldn't have called it that after listening to it. A mystery whistle, or my favorite, Satan's tea kettle, rocked the citizens of the town. Resident Paula Lynch was the first to report the disturbance. She said that she had heard it a few times during random daylight hours, but the middle of the night occurrences were the most unsettling. She managed to record the sound and posted it to Facebook, where it kind of went viral. Like everyone started commenting on it and how they had heard
others
it.
had heard it also, yeah.
Right. Here is
In a college town.
in a college
Yeah, that
in a college
does make you a
town.
little suspicious.
It does.
In Oregon.
In Oregon.
Everything to you is teenagers. But
Yes.
but listen to it. Some people
Sounds like a factory whistle to me.
Yeah, some people think it sounds like a train going off the rails.
Right.
And she can't turn it off.
Let's just
Or
turn
maybe
it
like
down.
a-
How about turn it down? Jeez.
I've heard of trains with a stuck wheel that'll make a squeal.
Right,
Kind of like that.
right. Well,
They
it
call
doesn't.
it a hot box. Yeah.
It doesn't sound quite as creepy as if you heard it at your house in the middle of the night.
Oh,
But
right.
everyone agrees that it's the epitome of annoying. Placing pins on a map for each complaint, officials worked to rule out faulty water valves, a gas leak, fire alarms, or any wildlife.
I like the way they approached it scientifically. Let's put
Exactly.
pins on a map where people are hearing this.
Yeah, well, I mean, and how
But
do you?
it didn't form a circle.
No, they still could not figure it out. But I'm still stuck on how you rule out wildlife.
Right?
Like, how do you? That could be Bigfoot screaming. I don't know. He stubbed his
He's
toe.
looking for the 52 hertz whale, but he's above ground.
Yeah, that's right.
They're long lost buddies.
Even though the complaints were mapped, it was impossible to pinpoint where the noise was coming from. The sound will have to just remain a mystery as it stopped in February of that year, 2016. Having lasted only a month or so, while people are still curious about it, they're glad it's gone.
So somebody fixed the train wheel. Got it.
I got my info. I would think they'd be able to figure out if a train was coming. It was happening every time a train came through.
Could be. It sounded mechanical in a way to me, but you just don't know.
Yeah, to me too. But I got my information from Wikipedia and theghostinmymachine.com.
I've got a few of those.
And now for something completely off topic and off kilter. Brace yourself for the oddity du jour.
All right, for our oddity du jour, this episode, let's take a look back to last year. 2022 was certainly an interesting year. Of course, the Russian invasion of Ukraine was probably the top headline, but it was also a mid-cycle election year in the United States and a year that saw a huge number of air travelers returning to the sky after being cooped up by COVID restrictions the previous 2 years. But it was also a year for odd world records.
Why not?
According to an article from the United Press International, or UPI, as they say in the business, these are the 10 oddest new Guinness World Records set in 2022. You ready for these? These are not in any particular order. We're not going less from least odd. They're just all particularly odd in their own category. So here we go. Jamie Keaton, a.k.a. Canhead, our Campa to his grandchildren, broke the record for most empty soda cans suctioned to his head and face.
Okay. I'm assuming he's bald.
Probably.
Suctioned.
He managed to affix 10 cans, which held for at least 5 seconds. Okay. Now, I like hearing the explanation from Jamie Keaton. Quote, I actually have a skin condition that's not named yet, where my skin pores literally suck in oxygen. Okay.
Right. I wonder if that's a medical diagnosis.
Talk about making lemonade out of lemons. So he's certainly done it. He's found a talent to take that on. Well, now we go to Ibrahim Sadek of Iraq. He managed to balance 18 eggs on the back of his hand, which tied the previous record. Phil's looking at the back of his hand right now.
Like 18 eggs.
18 eggs.
All right.
Quote, you need to have a high level of focus when attempting such a record, which is difficult to achieve, said Ibrahim. So I'm wondering, why couldn't you just add one more and break the record, you know?
Just do 9. Go
one
20.
more egg, really.
Go 20. Keep it even.
Right. Okay. Jacob Chandler of Oregon found all 26 English language letters in a can of alphabet soup and placed them in alphabetical order in 2 minutes and 8.6 seconds, which broke the record for fastest time to locate and arrange the letters of a can of alphabet soup in alphabetic order. According to...
Okay, wait, what?
He opened a can of alphabet soup and dumped it out, and he got all the letters of the alphabet, found them, and arranged them in order. In 2 minutes, 8.6 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. According to Chandler, quote, the most difficult aspect of practicing for the record was learning to identify the subtle differences between letters like M and W, said Chandler. So you want to mistake an M for a W.
They're subtle.
All right. Now this is a good one. Vermont teenager Ariana Wonderly, who has been performing with a youth circus since the age of 2, donned 4-inch high heels and walked 639 feet 7 inches across a tightrope at Bellows Falls Union High School in May while she was a senior at the school. Wonderly's feet, see that little play of one words that is. Anyway, Wonderly's feet demolished the previous record of 49.2 feet, which was set by a Russian performer in 2014. Take that, Putin. Yeah, you think you got something? You got nothing. Our girl can walk
heels.
649 feet. Your girl only 49 feet. We just
feel
put
like
you
singing.
to shame. Yeah.
We are the champions.
That's right. Now, I didn't know this, but the Carolina Reaper chili is the hottest chili pepper in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that?
Hurts. It hurts.
So what? Exclaimed Californian Greg Foster, who downed 10 of them in 33.15 seconds.
He has no taste buds anymore.
They showed a picture of him. He looked a little red.
And sweaty and
Yeah.
That's just melt your face hot.
Okay, now, this is an interesting one. The world record for the largest gathering of people with the same first and last name was broken in Tokyo when 178 Hirokazu Tanakas attended the Hirokazu Tanaka Festival.
I don't even know one.
I was going to say, was that in the States? Because everyone named Joe Smith?
Yeah.
Come on.
No,
Or
but
John Smith? I mean,
this
seriously.
broke the old record of 164 Martha Stewarts.
That's great.
Would the real Martha Stewart please stand up?
That's right.
That's great.
Now, Donald Rush makes it a passion to break Guinness World Records. In fact, in 2021, he broke 52 records in 52 weeks. Pretty impressive. Of course, the pandemic was going on. You didn't have much else
What
to
else?
do.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's he going to do to top that? In 2022, he broke the record for spit blowing a pea 84 feet and 11 inches across a level floor. That's almost the full length of a basketball court. This was David's...
Wait.
Spitballed a
Spit
pea?
blowing? Spit?
Spit blowing. Yeah, he blew it out. He spit it out of his mouth. 84 feet, 11 inches.
In one spit.
One spit.
Okay, that is impressive. That's impressive.
That's like almost baseline to baseline on a basketball court. Close
Just
to
don't be right next to him at the initial shot.
it. Right. And by the way, this
Taken out by a pea.
this was David's 250th world record. So congratulations, David.
Yeah.
So when is he going to break the record for the most world records?
I don't know. Maybe he does have it. We'll have to see who holds that. But that's quite impressive. 250 world records for David. Okay, what was his name? It was David. Not Tanaka. That was the last one. Okay, David Rusk. No, David Rush. R-U-S-H. David Rush. All right. Now, speaking of David, here's another one. David Hansen of Bellevue, Nebraska, purchased a giant pumpkin from a local farmer, hollowed it out, and set the record for longest journey in a pumpkin by paddling 37.5 miles down the Missouri River.
In the pumpkin.
In the pumpkin, yeah. Hansen accomplished this feat one day after his 60th birthday. All right, yeah, old folks like me. Just because you're old doesn't mean you can't accomplish great things. And then we've got Lim Kai Yi of Butterworth, Malaysia. First of all, let's just enjoy that phrase, Butterworth, Malaysia.
I'm enjoying that one, yeah.
He put his award-winning puzzle-solving skills to use by assembling a Mr. Potato Head toy together in 5.43 seconds. It was completely disassembled. He put it all together in just a little over 5 seconds.
That's a lot of practice.
And finally, competitors at the 2022 National Beard and Mustache Championship in Casper, Wyoming, teamed up to have their beards clipped together into a chain that measured a record-breaking 150-foot chain of facial hair. Using your head, right? This more than doubled the previous record of 62 feet set in Germany in 2007. Good old American know-how.
And
That's
that
how it's
just
done.
Was hair-raising.
That's not even something I'd want to see. At all.
One guy has mange and it's toast.
Or lice, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Yuck. And we're back.
Yay!
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, now let's go back to our obsolete sounds. Back to my old hometown again. There's a local mechanic named Leroy Mosty, who is somewhat of a legend. Mosty's garage has been in operation since I was a little kid, and it hasn't changed much over the years. Still looks about the same as it always has. I happened to be there not too long ago, and my brother was getting an old pickup repaired, and I heard this sound that I haven't heard in many years. Even though Leroy doesn't sell gas anymore, he still has the bell that is activated by people driving over the rubber hose. Up until the early 70s, when you pulled up to a gas station, you would run over this little hose which rang the bell and let the attendant know that he or she had a customer. They are often into the gas attendant was often changing oil in one of the bays, and so then they heard the bell, they knew they had to come out and wait on you. And in fact, they really waited on you back in those days.
Yep.
They would come out to your car, pump your gas, air your tires, clean your windshield, check under your hood, empty your litter bag, and even sweep out the floorboard for you. It was what was known as full service. But when the energy crunch hit in 1973, I remember that well, gas stations started offering customers an opportunity to save a few pennies per gallon by pumping their own gas. Over time, self-service has replaced full service, and there's no longer a need for the gas station bell. However, if you are nostalgic about this long-lost sound, you can order your own. There's a company called Milton's Bells that will sell you a driveway bell kit beginning around $95, and you can find them at miltonsbells.com. Even have longer ones that go out to your driveway, so you can know
Yeah,
somebody's
that's interesting.
coming
And
up to your
actually,
house.
when I go get my oil changed, they still have that.
They still have it?
At the Jiffy Lube.
Oh, okay. But that wasn't the only unusual sound I heard at Mostie's that day. I'd seen this antique item sitting on the counter. I thought it was just there as a display, but then Mr. Mostie went over to it, punched a few buttons, and pulled a large crank that was attached to the side. And I heard this.
Ka-ching.
Ka-ching. Yeah, exactly. He was still using the antique cash register that was operated by hand crank. I hear a lot of folks today mouthing a ka-ching sound like Phil and I just did, indicating that they've come into some money, but many may not know that they are mimicking the sound of this old cash register. Let's hear that again. Let's just keep that sound effect around. I kind of like that. Okay, when another customer whipped out his credit card, I was expecting to hear the of a card reader, but no, he actually had a modern card reader. That's kind of disappointing. Now,
yeah, because none of the banks accept it anymore.
Remember the sound of an old manual typewriter? Ah, yes, that takes me back to my sophomore year at Tivy High School in Coach Ward's typing class. We learned typing on manual Underwood typewriters.
I did too in 1990.
Oh, well, okay.
I had an electric typewriter.
Yeah,
I will say it was an electric typewriter, but still, it was still a typewriter.
Well, ours was manual. Well, the first year students used a manual. If you took typing 2, you got to use the electric one. That was the way it was back in the mid-'70s anyway. I can still smell them. You had to roll this paper through the cylinder, making sure that it was level, or else your page would be typed crooked. We were taught to sit up straight with our feet flat on the floor and to keep our eyes on the book from which we were copying.
And the crick in your neck.
Yeah. Yes, when we heard the bell, we were to use our left hand and with one swift motion return the carrier all the way to the right without taking our eyes off the copy page. If we had done everything correctly, our type page should mimic the copy page exactly. Well, that's what we were supposed to do.
That's how it's supposed to turn out.
Yeah, that's how it was supposed to turn out. It often did not. I got to where I was a pretty decent typist, but certainly not perfect. Okay, so we don't listen for bells anymore and have to return the carriage when we hear when we reach the end of a line. But knowledge of the QWERTY keyboard has definitely come in handy for me over the years. So thank you, Coach Ward, for all that help that you gave me.
Did you know? Okay, have you ever wondered why the keyboard wasn't in alphabetical order?
I have often wondered that.
So they did it that way because the manual typewriter did it in order to keep you from typing fast, to keep you hunting and pecking, because the early manual typewriters would jam up. You've seen.
Oh,
yeah,
when you press
where the heads all hit together.
They would hit together and clump. That was kind of fun, actually.
So
causing it was a blast.
Yeah.
It was put in there. I mean, because it's not intuitive at all. It's not alphabetical. They don't put the letters that you use most close together or anything like that.
It's interesting that we still kept it, though, with modern keyboards.
Well, I mean, people got used to it.
Yeah.
And they used it that way.
And repetitive training on it.
Right. When I was a kid, my mother worked at the county clerk's office, which was located in the Kirk County Courthouse. This was, and still is, an old masonry building with tiled walls and floors, and I can clearly remember the sound of manual typewriters continually echoing off those hard surfaces. Yeah, you can hear it as soon as you walked in the door. By the way, have you ever heard the typewriter song?
No, I never have.
What?
Back in 1953, a fellow named Leroy Anderson decided that the typewriter would be a great musical instrument.
Why not?
His song, simply called The Typewriter, became something of a hit. You can find it on YouTube, but you got to hook it up right there, don't you?
Listen to it here.
All right, that's the typewriter song.
And that ding is when you return the carriage to the other end so you can start a new line.
And it would automatically advance the paper for you a little bit as you move the carriage over. Oh, you could set it for single space, double space, or triple space.
Yes.
And when you moved it over. You'd set your tab. Oh, yeah, you remember having to set the tabs and... it would stop you.
It was complicated.
The margin
we
release.
now call those margins.
And that's the reason whiteout was created.
Please do not use that on your screens today.
Right. Speaking of schools, an old school administrator friend of mine once opined that if aliens ever landed on a school playground, they would think that we were a society that worshiped bells. Think about it. A bell rings, the kids go to class. Another bell rings, they go to recess.
Pavlov's
lunch, PE,
dog.
Yeah. And then they go home. I know Pavlov's dog would have really enjoyed that, responded, I think. Everything is controlled by the bell. But the truth is, unless you attend school in a very old building, you probably won't hear this sound anymore.
It's funny because we were out to dinner yesterday, and Tori, the restaurant that we were at, we were near the hostess station,
Right.
and the phone rang, and apparently it sounded just like the school bell, and she started to get up. She's like, it's just automatic. You don't
Right.
think, you just get up. She goes, I got to change classes.
Well, even though school personnel still refer to it as a bell schedule, the old school bell has been replaced by an electronic sound more like a high-pitched beep. In fact, the last school where I taught had a series of different beeps, which meant different things, in which I always found to be confusing. Wait, what does that beep mean? Are we supposed to go? Is it an emergency? I don't know. Go back to work. Another bell that we don't have much anymore is from the old-timey alarm clock. You know, the kind that had the two bells on the top and a little clapper that let you know it was time to wake up. Now most of us use our phone alarms to wake us up. Okay, what's your alarm song? I'll tell you what
Mine is like, it's classical music. Tchaikovsky, I don't know,
that's
something
nice.
like that.
That's it? Mine's
It's very-
Stevie Wonder.
It's very cello. Well, okay, so I had a song. Man, I can't remember the name of it. Very easy
Mine's
sounding
superstitious.
is it?
Oh, yeah.
That's perfect.
Perfect startup. It's awesome.
Mine is Glenn Miller's String of Pearls. Bum, 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 ba, bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 ba, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba, bum. Yeah, that gets you going in the morning.
The thing about it is I don't want a song that I like because I end up hating it. It ruins it for me if I have to wake up to it.
Oh, no, this is perfectly fine. Becky may not.
Well, in our last episode on national parks, we talked a bit about Yellowstone, specifically the death zone. That's not the only weird thing about the park, though.
Yeah.
I want to know, is
are
that
you-
like 10 miles by 10 miles? I mean, it's just...
Could
it's always-
be.
No,
Yeah.
the death zone is pretty big.
Yeah.
Right.
It's pretty big. Anyway,
Good episode.
campers today, as well as travelers of the past, have all wondered at the strange sounds inside the park, referred to as lake music.
Ooh.
A park historian says the sounds have been documented as far back as the 1890s. Lake music is usually experienced near the shores of both Lake Shoshone and Yellowstone Lake and has been described in many ways, from, quote, metal cables crashing against each other, ethereal, is that how you say that?
Ethereal, yeah.
Ethereal, that's it. Organ music, and the sound of ducks in flight. Once heard, and it's usually in the morning. It happens in the morning time. But once heard, it grows louder and more intense until it seems to be right overhead and rapidly fades away. Experts have tried to find the source of the mysterious sounds and have postulated that maybe mild earthquakes have been to blame, with the temperature inversion above the lake affecting how, the sound is conducted.
Okay.
But that's just an unverifiable hypothesis, and the phenomena remains officially unexplained.
Yeah, water spirits. That's what the locals would say,
Now here's the thing. I love legend, and the legend has it that
Teenagers.
the sound. It's all teenagers. That's it. It's all teenagers. But legend has it that the sound is associated with the many drowning victims that have never been recovered.
Interesting.
Yellowstone Lake.
Scientist pranksters.
There you go. Yellowstone Lake remains at year-round temperature of about 43 degrees Fahrenheit, and so will kill you with coldness before it kills you with drowning. And because the water is so cold, it interrupts the decomp process that usually makes bodies rise to the surface. So instead, if a drowning victim isn't recovered quickly, it sinks to the bottom of the lake to rest there eternally.
Oh, okay.
There are an estimated 11 to 17 bodies at the bottom of Yellowstone Lake, and the lake music is said to be the whisperings of those lost souls.
Oh, well, okay.
Okay, so before playing the recording of the lake music, let me just say that hearing a recording through a podcast it doesn't do it justice. Like any of these really
Right.
doesn't do it justice. But you have to try to imagine you're camping in the wilderness on the shores of a lake and hear something approaching, then passing you by in the air overhead. And here we go.
No, that's unusual, isn't it? That's very strange.
And I think the creepiest thing is that it approaches and then leaves, goes by you.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's lake music.
Lake music from Yellowstone. Well, now going back to nostalgic sounds that are kind of fading away, I remember as a kid waking up each morning to the sound and smell of a coffee percolator. They kind of make that.
They're not completely gone.
No, they're not completely gone because with the hipsters loving coffee so much.
Right, that's true.
There's there's different ways to make it.
We have an Italian. I'm not sure what kind of, if this coffee maker is
espresso, probably
espresso maker, but I'm not sure if it's widely sown across Europe. I just know we got one from Italy, and it is a percolator.
It kind of makes that same sound.
Yeah. Well, kinda. Not completely because it's metal capped.
Well, it used to be the only kind.
Yes.
And believe me, you didn't want to talk to my parents in the morning until they had their first cup of coffee. But the first drip coffee maker, which is so common these days, the Mr. Coffee came along in the 1970s with Joltin' Joe DiMaggio as their spokesperson. Before that, coffee was brewed in a percolator. The sound of a percolator was so popular that Maxwell House Coffee incorporated it into their advertising jingle, and it went something like...
Yeah, something like that.
Something like
I had to do that because we didn't want to get sued by Maxwell House for playing their 60-year-old jingle.
If you're looking for a podcast
but
sponsor,
that's right. On the other hand,
play your jingle a lot.
You know what? If Maxwell House sued us, that would be good publicity.
Yeah, that would be. But I have to say, Keurig, no. Do away. I'm down with the Keurig. Do not.
They were kind of wasteful, it seems like.
It's very wasteful. It's very wasteful, and it's very disgusting. It makes the coffee really bitter.
I did buy my wife a percolator that you could cook on the barbecue grill for the next time our power. Yeah. No, the next time our power goes out, she can't get her coffee.
That's the espresso one. You put it on the stove, but you could use it pretty much on anything.
I think that would be cool.
Heat it up.
Yeah. Now, we've talked before about how language changes over time. Today, we hear the phrase broken record. We're more apt to think of an athlete or a performer who has broken a previously established record for some act of speed or endurance. But in the not-too-distant past, the phrase had an additional meaning. In 1877, Thomas Edison invented the phonograph, the first device that could reproduce recorded sound. Edison's original device used a tin wrapped around a cylinder to reproduce the sound, but by the 1920s, the cylinders were replaced by flat vinyl discs. Oh, yeah, we were getting back to what you were talking about earlier.
Nostalgia. Coming back.
These flat discs were easily stored by consumers who continued to buy vinyl records in large quantities even during the Great Depression years. By the 1970s, the LP, or long playing album, actually really more of the 60s, I think is when they came out. I wrote the 70s, but I remember seeing them in the 60s. The LP, or long playing album, allowed for multiple songs to be stored on both sides of the vinyl album. And the large album covers were often just as interesting as the music on the disc.
Yep.
In fact, often they were more interesting than the music on the disc. Vinyl records were great, but there was one problem. They weren't especially durable.
Nope.
Even with the most careful handling, the vinyl could develop scratches across the grooves. When that happened, this would occur.
Groundhog Day.
Sounds like one of my kids.
Yes, my friends, that's the sound of a broken record. Curiously enough, this phrase also applied to people who just wouldn't stop talking. You sound like a broken record.
Yes.
Was a phrase uttered by many a flustered mother toward her child who continually blabbed on and on. Offshoots of this phrase included, your needle is stuck, and you must have been vaccinated with a phonograph needle. People who just continued talking. Now, speaking of the phonograph or record player, the original version would only hold one record at a time. But by the late 60s, people didn't want to be bothered with continually having to change their records.
Boring.
High fidelity, or hi-fi stereo systems came onto the market, which could hold a stack of records. After one record had finished playing, you would hear the clunky mechanical sound of the player switching out records. That's right. The needle arm would lift off the record and swing out of the way. Then a metal clip would briefly collapse, allowing the next record to drop from the stack and fall onto the turntable. Of course, dropping one vinyl record onto another, which was in the process of spinning around, was a good way to damage the vinyl and wind up with scratches on your record or another broken record. Oddly enough, many folks today like these scratchy sounds and appreciate the imperfect quality of vinyl records. It's soothingly nostalgic.
I do. I miss that.
And we know it will put her to sleep.
That's right.
Now, a sound that you likely have heard, but you might not be aware that it is a digital imitation of the original sound, is the sound of a camera shutter. You may hear this when using the digital camera on your phone. However, your phone doesn't really need to make that sound in order to shoot a photo. The sound is added in digitally just to sound cool. The original sound was that of a mechanical camera shutter, likely from a 35mm camera. I love photography. And for my 18th birthday in 1975, I have it right here, holding it in my lap. My parents bought me a Yashica 35mm camera. I especially love the timer because it allowed me to set the camera up, push the timer, and then run around and get in the picture. The timer and the shutter operated mechanically off of batteries and made those cool sounds that my phone now mimics. Photography is terrific, but in the era of film cameras, the time gap between taking the photo and actually seeing your picture could be days, weeks, months, who knows?
Yep.
You had to finish your roll of 24 or 36 exposures, then take the roll of film down to the local drugstore or mail them off to be developed. It might take another week for your prints to come in. A Harvard-educated scientist named Edward Land began working on this problem when his daughter asked him why their camera couldn't just make pictures instantly. In the 1960s, Land developed the Polaroid Swinger. The Polaroid Swinger was a simple camera that cost less than $20 and could produce black and white pictures in 1 minute. Best of all, the Polaroid Swinger was promoted by, in my opinion, the greatest TV commercial ever. Have you ever seen the Swinger commercial? Meet the Swinger, Polaroid Swinger. It's more than a camera. It's almost alive. It's only $19.95. And then
No.
Who needs to go look it up? We just have to ring his bell.
But the original version is better because it featured attractive young people frolicking on the beach, enjoying their Polaroid Swinger, and backed with this terrific soundtrack. Oh, man, I wanted a Swinger so bad. Never got one. But check out that commercial on YouTube sometime. That's really fun to watch. Anyway, I digress. Polaroid continued making advancements in their instant cameras, and by the mid-'70s, they had developed the Polaroid One-Step, camera that instantly spit out a piece of photographic paper that developed into a full-color photo in 1 minute right before your eyes. Mm-hmm. Okay, the quality wasn't quite as good as traditional photography, but hey, it was an instant gratification, the first time that you could see your pictures instantly.
They are making a comeback.
Right.
Tori asked for one for her birthday, I think it was, and she has one. She and her friends love it.
Yeah, Mallory has some. They're now miniature. They're miniaturized even more. You can do them like
I've seen
1
that
inch
too,
or 2 inch by 2 inch or less.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah,
they're fun just to have around and you see your picture printed out right away.
They don't last though, because they can fade
away over time.
Yeah, I've seen them in our family albums or whatever, and they tend to go wonky after a while.
The quality wasn't quite up to.
Yeah,
and you had to make sure you didn't touch it before it completely developed.
Sometimes you had to wave it back and forth.
Yeah, flip. Yeah, I remember my mom doing that. Well, we have covered mysterious sounds from the depths of the oceans and strange noises from across the land. So, of course, we have to head out into the final frontier and talk about unexplained audio from space.
Which will go on forever.
Now, that can't be teenagers, okay? Just saying. As always,
alien teenagers.
Maybe it is.
Science pranksters.
As always, there's so much more to talk about than we can include in a single episode. So we have to pick and choose what stories we bring you. But for your Googling pleasure, here's a list of sound anomalies to keep you up at night. From under the sea, we mentioned the Julia, the upsweep, the whistle, the ocean quack.
Ocean quack.
Yes. And the slowdown. The sounds on land that are notable that we did not cover are skyquakes, the Taos hum, the UVB 76 or mysterious shortwave radio number stations, maybe a holdout from the Cold War. The center of the universe, which happens to be in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Really? They proved it with a globe and a tape measure.
It's aimed right there.
And just like it, the Lake George mystery spot and singing sand.
Oh yeah, I've heard of the singing sands.
From space, there is the space roar, Earth hum, aurora sounds, so like the Borealis makes sounds. Moon music, which we talked about. That's what the astronauts heard when they went around the far side of the moon and lost radio contact with Earth. And not really music at all, but
sounds
static.
And musical black hole. But the one sound from space we'll talk about in one of our last stories is the NASA recordings of radio and plasma waves from the Cassini spacecraft when it made its flyby of Saturn.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, that's cool.
The Cassini spacecraft was sent to Saturn to send information back to Earth about the wonders of the planet, its rings, and its icy moons.
Yeah, Saturn's amazing, isn't it?
It really is. A recording made by the spacecraft has caused wild speculation, of course, as it contains eerie audio that sounds very similar to speech patterns. The YouTube video, the recording we are about to play for you, says that NASA is quoted as saying about the audio, quote, "an intriguing file. We do not know what to make of it," unquote.
It's Saturn saying, "Get off my rings."
Probably. I'm not sure whether that's an actual quote coming from NASA or one just made up to get more clicks on the video. But here's the audio, and it's pretty unsettling.
That was recorded in
From
the
space.
Yeah, from that Cassini spacecraft.
Wow.
And it was
That is awesome.
And it's much longer.
Yeah, like that.
Let me stop it. It's much longer, and I think that is actually sped up so as to enhance the fact that it is speech patterns, or it sounds like speech patterns. But there you have it. And of course, there's all kinds of speculation about what that really is. And I believe that the Cassini was running out of fuel, and this was, intended the way it was, and it was making its final descent to Saturn when it recorded that. It was dying.
Oh,
it was going in. That was its dying.
Of course,
orders.
that could have just been itself reflecting.
Yeah. It's its own lament.
It's basically saying, "Come on."
I thought you guys were going to get me out of here. Nobody told me this.
Mayday, mayday.
And now it's time, boys and girls, for the Trivia Challenge.
Well, all right. Time for that Trivia Challenge. You know how this works, folks. Like and follow our Facebook page at Remnant Stew Podcast. Like and share this episode post. Put your answer to the Trivia Challenge question in the comments of that post. The first individual to do all of that will be the winner and will be mentioned in an upcoming episode of Remnant Stew. Our Trivia Challenge is also open to school kids, so if you're a teacher and your class listens to Remnant Stew, we challenge them to answer the Trivia Challenge. Send us the answer through email at staycurious@remnantstew.com. If your class is the first to answer, we'll send them a care package that your class will enjoy. So what's our question today, Leah?
Well, remember we talked about the SOFAR channel within the ocean. Inspired by the SOFAR channel, what top secret project did it inspire that resulted in the Roswell incident?
Ooh, that's interesting, yeah. Very interesting.
Hey, thanks for spending some time with us. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Remnant Stew Podcast. You can also send us an email to say hi or suggest a topic for a future episode at staycurious@remnantstew.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Remnant Stew is part of Rook and Raven Ventures and is created by me, Leah Lamp. Dr. Stephen Meeker and I research, write, and host each episode, along with commentary by our audio producer, Philip Sinquefield. Theme music is by Kevin MacLeod, with voiceover by Morgan Hughes. Special thanks goes out to Judy, Meeker, and Harbin, Gould.
Now, before you go, please hit the follow button so you won't miss an episode. Head on over to Apple Music and leave us a review. We love seeing those reviews. Share Remnant Stew with your friends, your family, and that poor lonely whale if you run into him. Until next time, remember to choose to be kind
and always stay curious.
Bye.